Good evening. From PLUGHITZ Studios in Largo, Florida, I'm Scott.
I'm Avram.
And we are here with episode 577 of F5 Live, refreshing technology for Sunday, October 25th, 2020. This show is a proud part of the Tech Podcast Network. If it's tech, it's here. This week, video game streaming is under review, Google is officially under suit, and Quibi is underwater. Wherever you are and however you're accessing our show, whether it be on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or Snapchat, through a podcatcher like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, TuneIn, or a myriad of other options through our live stream platforms, livestream.com, Twitch, Periscope, YouTube, or Facebook, or of course on our website, PLUGHITZlive.com. Thank you for making us a part of your day. There are two ways that you can do that. The first is you can join us live Sunday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern by going to f5live.tv/join us. There you can chat with us during the show and give your feedback on the topics as we talk about them. Or you can always subscribe at PLUGHITZlive.com/subscribe. There you'll see all of our shows, including F5 Live, Piltch Point, PLUGHITZ Live Presents, and more. And of course, find all of the different ways that you can watch or listen. Avram, how are you doing tonight? You are muted. I am not hearing you at all, buddy.
Not bad.
Hey, now I hear you.
Not bad at all. We have I have a new home setup now. I'm up to, let me see if there's enough wire on here to show this. I'm up to 4 monitors. So
nice.
So now I have my my best setup for doing multitasking.
Did your monitor happen to go back on sale during Prime Day, or did you just go, I had to do it?
A combination of the two. It came back in stock at Lenovo at regular price, but then I also found that Retail Me Not claims to give you 10% back.
Okay.
Which you don't get for a few weeks, so we'll have to see if it happens. So I bought a second one of my monitor, although they actually make this as 2 different model names, so I have it one of each model name. One says Lenovo on it, one says ThinkVision, but otherwise they're supposed to be the same, except the OSD menu is different, apparently. Nobody told me, and I don't know if it's because they're different model name numbers or just because this happens with panels, but I can't get the colors to match. One of them seems to have, no matter what I do to adjust them, they don't quite have the same colors, the same color. They don't quite match. I look at a picture on one, a picture on another. They don't look quite the same. So hard to say, but I think having talked to a lot of other people who have plenty of different monitors, they also see these issues. So come to think it might have been happening with my other monitors too before this. I just didn't really notice. I wasn't being picky about it.
Mm-hmm.
One of them seems the new one seems a little bit more washed out than the slightly older one. But I don't know. I guess it depends. So yeah, I mean, it's I keep messing with the color on them, but I'm happy to have this many monitors. Having the smaller ones on the top is not bad, because what I do with them, the most important thing, and I just emphasize this to anybody else thinking about getting more than 2 monitors, is I normally had 2 monitors, but I didn't want to give up screen real estate to have things permanently on one of them. So I want to have my email inbox always visible.
Mm-hmm.
I want to have my Slack window that I use for chatting with my coworkers always visible. And, I might also want to have my Google Analytics for our website to see what the traffic is in real time, always visible. Or maybe, so I use the top two monitors now for that always visible stuff.
Yep.
And then that gives me two monitors to actually have like current work on.
Yeah.
And that's the real advantage. It's not that I have to have four monitors for like, I'm doing work and I have one writing some code, and I'm doing one on one monitor. I'm writing the code. Another monitor, I'm testing it on our website. Another monitor is the FTP client. Another monitor is Photoshop for designing graphic. Like that wouldn't be bad either. But the things that I want to have always open all the time. And that has changed my workflow, because a lot of times I wouldn't have like Slack or email open up for a few hours or whatever. And then I hear from people like, how come you didn't get my message?
Yeah.
Because maybe I didn't see the alert right away, or maybe it wasn't something that was that I was signed up to get a notification for. So,
Right.
So I think that is the biggest thing. Given that these new monitors are 4K and 28 inch, I feel like I'm wasting space. I'm wasting all this lovely real estate by using one window on each. So what I try to do, but don't usually succeed at doing, is to actually split them. I downloaded a new utility, which I've never seen anything else that does this. It's called Max2. And what it does is it will allow you to change the behavior of your maximize button, but different on every screen that you have. So I set my primary screen, the one that I'm use the most, to have, when you hit maximize, it only takes up half the screen, so that I have two windows. So I'm using two windows on that screen. But a lot of times I'll have something where I really just want to concentrate, give more space and attention to what I'm doing, like right now our video. So I end up stretching them across the screen anyway, and kind of not using that feature. But I did I know you have, obviously people can use Windows Snap, which they can hit the Windows key and an arrow to do. But I had trained myself so often to use the maximize button on Windows that this way it kind of stops me from wasting space by putting it on half the screen.
That's funny. I'm looking at the website right now, and it's definitely interesting. It gives you more zones than the standard Windows Snap does. Not that I necessarily would use the ultra customization of the zones the way they do, but it's definitely an interesting idea. I obviously use the Windows Snap. I think we've talked about this all the time. And I've just gotten I've gotten to the point where I don't even think about it. It's just, Windows left, Windows right, and it auto snaps left and right for me, which is pretty cool. I can definitely see if you're an ultra wide monitor user for sure, because with the custom snap zones, that would be super useful if you're dealing with an ultra wide. In fact, I plan on sending this link over to Mark to let him know about this, because he's got an ultra wide monitor and he might freak out about this. It's a cool idea.
Yeah, it is. So, I'm always a believer that you can never have too much screen real estate. So, I think four monitors is it for me for now, for a while. I actually have a coworker who has a 6-monitor setup. You have a 6-monitor setup also?
I sure do.
Okay. Wow. So what? So 4 is not that much.
So I have.
What are you using it on?
Using it on or using it for?
Yeah. What computer are you using it with?
Oh, actually, I have I have one computer with 4, and then another computer with 2, and I use mouse without borders, so I use the one keyboard and mouse across both computers, just so that I can keep my so I've got a grid of 4 like what you have, and then to my left I've got 2 more above me where I do the things you were talking about. I've got our show stats and our YouTube stats snap side by side. I've got the website stats on another screen. And then that computer is also running the Windows Insider program. So I can keep up on what's going on with, the upcoming Windows. And then the main computer I usually have entertainment in the top left corner, so Netflix or Hulu or whatever. And then I've got 2 messengers snap side by side. It's usually Messenger and Microsoft Teams because that's what I use for work instead of Slack most of the time. And then I've got Visual Studio and whatever else going on. My active, what I'm working on the bottom 2, basically the same way you do.
Yeah, because it's actually, I don't think it's that easy to have 6 monitors attached to the same computer.
Yeah, not really.
So, like, I have an RTX 2070 graphics card in here, and it has 4 monitor out ports. It cannot do more. It cannot support more than 4 4K monitors. It cannot support more than 4 monitors of any resolution. So the only way I could think of to do it would be either if there was a way I could get a second video card, which is not easy to do because NVIDIA doesn't really support dual video cards very well anymore. Or the easier, more likely scenario would be to get a DisplayLink dock, connect via USB, and output to additional monitors that way.
Yeah.
But I also don't know if I have enough space in this room to do it. Plus, I promised my wife I wouldn't get more than 4 monitors. Although the doors, I don't want to say this in front of the old ones are good, but the door is open for maybe next year or something. Getting the top 2 to be the same kind as the bottom 2. So, but it's the top 2 are fine. I mean, they're good, and it's actually I don't need them to be so big for what I'm doing with them.
Right.
It's one thing that's interesting is with Windows, and I'll just leave it with this. If you have monitors that are not the same resolution, then one of them won't be directly above the other, right? Or they'll, like I have to go up the middle,
yes,
right, to get to this other monitor. If I go up from the corner or whatever, there's no monitor there because it's the grid that Windows shows you. You've got to position those monitors.
So you hit a wall. You're in a dead corner.
There are parts that you can't go up or whatever, but that's fine. So yeah, it's neat. I mean, one thing I wish that I could do, I bet there's a way to do this, but I haven't figured out yet, is to make it like when it opens up, automatically put certain windows in certain monitors.
Yeah.
Like, I want that Slack window to be in that monitor
top right
over
corner
there. Like,
yeah.
I want it to automatically go there when I boot up. That would be nice.
I have, for the stats computer, I have the browser is always open back up exactly where I left them, which is great. But yeah, other than that, you never know. There's no predicting what's going to happen. Oh, and that's infuriating. But, well, welcome to the 4 Monitor Club, buddy. It's definitely going to be an experience. You always take a little bit of time of going, oh, right. I can put that up there. But it'll definitely change the way you work in a good way. So, punched my microphone. Anyway, I guess with the punching of the microphone, that is our sign to talk about some news. This week's Nifty Gifties on F5 Live is proudly powered by the Microsoft Store. Whether you're looking for a new laptop, a tablet, an Xbox, games, and a whole lot more, you can get them at the Microsoft Store. And remember that current students, faculty, parents, and active military can save up to 10% on almost anything. And you can find out about all of that and all the deals that are going on right now by going to f5live.tv/Microsoft. All right, so in June, something interesting happened. T-Mobile failed. And by that, I mean the entire network. If you were a T-Mobile customer, you probably noticed that calls and texts were having issues. If you were not, you probably noticed your friends and or family posting on Facebook about their calls and texts having trouble. Anybody else having trouble with their cell phone? I saw dozens of posts like that day because I technically, I guess, was going to be a T-Mobile customer in the future, but was not quite just yet. So what happened was they were doing some work in Atlanta, basically swapping out some older routers for new ones, and a data line, a connector link, failed, and apparently they did not have any of the failover technology in place that they're supposed to have. And so Atlanta isolated itself, and then all the phones kept trying to connect to the network, and they'd fail, and they'd connect to the network, and they'd fail. Eventually, Atlanta was unisolated, but the hardware wasn't working. So the phones all tried to connect outside of Atlanta, causing congestion, and similar to what happened with the Northeast blackout years ago, congestion pushed further out, which created new problems, and new things started to fail, and it just cascaded out, and all of T-Mobile went down. So, as I said, there are some best practices that are supposed to be followed to maintain your FCC licenses, for example. And obviously T-Mobile did not have any of those best practices in effect, which is where all of this came from. This week, the FCC published the results of the investigation on what had happened, which is what I just explained. And they also put out a general letter, a press release, saying, hey, carriers, remember to do your job. And that is the only repercussions that T-Mobile will get for 12 hours of nationwide network failure, which, considering how hard the FCC tried to come down on Verizon for the outage in California during the fires, 2 years ago, this seems like a really lax response to me. What do you think, Avram?
Yeah, but I mean, it's not good. This kind of stuff, unfortunately, will happen. I mean, I think it would be nice if T-Mobile would do something to make good to their customers.
Yeah. Give
them 12 hours off. I don't know. After provide the service, you shouldn't be charging for it, but have unlimited plans. How you prorate somebody for 12 hours of that probably doesn't come out to much. Probably isn't worth much. Obviously, if you were in a situation where you desperately needed to make a phone call, this problem, I assume the phones still worked for 911.
No.
Do we know?
They did not.
No, they didn't.
Correct.
So they don't connect to somebody else's network for 911?
So theoretically, yes. But since the phones were failing to identify, they were essentially isolating themselves. They saw T-Mobile. They tried to connect to T-Mobile. They failed to connect to T-Mobile, and some sort of a weird software issue during the isolation essentially made it so that they couldn't even identify over Wi-Fi. They were unable to identify themselves.
Yeah, it's interesting because I have T-Mobile and I don't remember having a hard day with them in June. I know people were talking about it. I unfortunately, probably didn't leave the house.
Yeah,
I know.
the identification problem was mostly an Atlanta issue. So Atlanta for sure was without 911 service. So what happened outside of Atlanta, well, inside and outside of Atlanta, the thing that everybody experienced was essentially that voice over LTE and voice over Wi-Fi was disabled basically nationwide because it was all overrun and it started to come down. So phones were switching over to 3G and 2G to try and make voice calls. Some places still have a robust 3G infrastructure. Some places don't. As towers fail or whatever, they don't spend as much time trying to maintain them. Somewhere like New York probably puts more time into maintaining. Maybe, who knows? But that was all voice was trying to switch back to 3G and 2G, and then as that happened, obviously they have less infrastructure in general, right? 3G and 2G have less capability, less bandwidth than 4G or Wi-Fi for sure, and so that started to congest those up too. It was a mess. It is a fascinating situation. It is all because of a preventable software issue that essentially the load balancer was configured incorrectly, which is why the switchover never happened and why Atlanta isolated itself, and then like a floodgate opening up, obviously everybody trying to do the same thing at once. T-Mobile DDoSed themselves. So it cascaded from there. It's very similar to a thing that happened with AT&T long distance many years ago. I think it was sometime in the early 90s or something, where a software issue caused like a third of the country to be without long distance service. But it's definitely interesting. Obviously, the FCC we talked about this a couple months ago, right, Avram? The FCC talks big and never actually comes back on anything. So I guess this is probably what I would have expected. But hopefully in the future they'll hold. There's now a warning, right? They've said industry standards, follow the industry standards or things are going to get bad. So maybe this is like getting pulled over and getting a written warning.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I think the fact that they were down for 12 hours is bad, but then when you think about people not being able to dial 911, someone could die. Yes. I don't know if anybody did die, but if you have emergency services down, someone could die.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's really serious. So I think they need a little bit more than it's not even a slap on the wrist, a tap on the wrist. If emergency services go down, if it's people can't surf the internet or something, like, listen, it's necessary, we need it, but if people can't even E9 doesn't work, isn't it if you have a phone without a SIM card, it can dial 911?
Absolutely, as long as it can connect to a network.
Right. So you're saying that one of these T-Mobile phones could not connect to 911
because it had a SIM
even
card.
though a phone without a SIM.
Because it had a SIM
If
and
you
it was
took the
trying
SIM
to.
card out, would it have worked?
Yes, absolutely, almost certainly.
So you know, granted, if I had to dial 911, I think the last thing that I would have time to do is find a little tiny pin.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not easy to get your SIM card out. If for anyone who hasn't tried, that little tiny door, and you got to find a paper clip or
It's
some
got to
kind
be
of
a
really
thin
tiny
paper clip.
pin. Yeah,
Because those
something
little
like
holes
a
are getting
really,
smaller.
right. Maybe it's more like a needle or
Mm-hmm.
something
Like a
that you
straight
have
pen.
to stick in there.
Straight pen. Something like that.
Really, really, you know, thin pin to go in there to open it up to get the. And I don't think a lot of people would have known that or
Right.
had the presence of mind in the middle of an emergency to take out their SIM card.
Absolutely.
So,
especially
that's
especially if you didn't know at the time what was happening, because even T-Mobile didn't know what was happening. They actually,
how would you know that you needed to take out your SIM card?
Right. They actually, T-Mobile during the event misdiagnosed what was happening, which is why they de-isolated Atlanta the way that they did, which cascaded the problem because they misdiagnosed the issue. So even they didn't know that the problem was that phones weren't registering with the network. So even they couldn't have told you, take your SIM out to call 911, because they didn't know what the problem was at the time. So it would have been just an absolute, honest to God, shot in the dark pulling the SIM card in the moment, because even T-Mo didn't know what was happening. So
So yes, but that's, you know, they do really need to take that seriously, and I hope that if somebody suffered medical damage, you know, died or their condition got worse or whatever because they couldn't dial 911 during this outage, that they have some recourse, because that's really bad.
Yeah, it's definitely a bad situation if that happened. I have not heard any reports of any sort of medical related or emergency related issues. Not to say that there wouldn't have been, but I haven't heard any reports. So at least that's good. Likely nothing else will come of this unless somebody does does realize that what happened was because of negligence on T-Mobile's part, which is what the FCC is saying, and goes after them for an emergency situation. Unless that happens, I don't think we're going to hear anything more on this. Hopefully it'll be the last time we see something, certainly on this scale, because it's definitely the biggest outage, wireless outage we've seen. You know, one of the big three entirely going down for half a day. So hopefully we'll never see anything like that again. But, you know, technology is what it is. Humans make mistakes. And that's exactly how we got where we are. So this week's Piltch Point with Avram Piltch is proudly powered by PureVPN. The best way to protect your privacy online is with PureVPN. You can hide your online activities, say goodbye to regional restrictions, and improve your streaming quality. Plus, it is available for almost all of your devices, and you can get a special price and a 31-day money-back guarantee, all by going to piltchpoint.live/PureVPN. All right, Avram, I think you got something to show us, right?
Yes, I do. So, what I have here is a laptop, but not like any laptop you've seen before. It is the Crow Pi 2. It's a regular laptop for regular use, because if I lift up the keyboard, we'll see something special. Ta-da! This is a learning
It looks like a Radio Shack electronic learning kit.
It is the successor to that.
Awesome.
So we talk a lot about how awesome it is to learn how to program things with a Raspberry Pi, because you need the real fun of using a Raspberry Pi is not that it's a $35 computer that can run Linux, because most of us already have PCs that could run Linux or Windows. It's connecting it to lights, motors, and sensors. But when you normally buy a Raspberry Pi starter kit, it just comes with a Raspberry Pi and a case and a plug to plug it in, and maybe a keyboard and mouse. But that's all computer stuff. Where's the fun in that?
Mm-hmm.
You got to buy motors and sensors, but which ones to get and how to use them. So here we've got something that really addresses that problem, and it's great for kids because it is in the laptop form factor here, but it has built in all of these cool lights, motors, and sensors, and there are actually more things come in the box. So inside of this CrowPi 2 is a Raspberry Pi 4, 4 GB. You can buy it actually in several different configurations, one of which, the most basic of which is $269. You bring your own Raspberry Pi. This, I think, is the advanced kit that's $399 and comes with just a variety of other sensors, the Pi inside, game controllers, because it also comes with RetroPie, which is a game emulation system, and all of these things. So what we have here, among other things, is we've got an LED screen. We've got a matrix of buttons. We've got an 8x8 LED matrix, so that's for making light up things. We've got all 40 GPIO pins, and you could use to put on hats, which are expansion boards for Raspberry Pi. We've got an ultrasonic sensor. We've got a photoresistor sensor. We've got an RFID sensor, and it comes with a bunch of RFID tags, so you can program it to do different things when you flash a tag in front of it. We've got connectors here for a stepper motor and a servo motor, and it comes with those in the box. We've got I think this is a little joystick over here. This is, I think, a motion sensor. I don't even know what a buzzer sound sensor. It comes in the box with a moisture sensor for potted plants. So, and the screen here is an 11-inch full HD 1920 by 1080 screen. Now, one thing it doesn't come with, annoyingly, is a battery. So you got to use it plugged in. The Crow, the company that makes it, sells a battery that you can put into this slot here in the back. Let me see. But it doesn't come with one in the box. So the thing that's really neat about this, though, is if all you had was just the physical parts that I showed you, you still might be a little bit bored, because what am I going to do with all this? You need to learn, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you. Let me see if I can do this. I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to show you. I guess I do. And I'm going to show you what the interface looks like. So it comes with its own UI. And when you first, I'll show you the home screen in a second, but when you get into the learning section, you can learn how to program in either Python or Scratch. Scratch is a good programming language for kids that's very popular. It's block-based. They drag blocks around. I like my son to use Python, which is a little bit more grown up because it's a text-based language that adults use. Anyway, what you can see here is inside there's this kind of image map of what the it looks like, right? What the sensors on it look like. It actually doesn't even show all of them, but you can highlight things and you can see what they do. And what's interesting is if you want a lesson about it, you click on it and it'll actually give you a lesson and with the code to do it. So you see here, there's like a little character telling you, we'll learn about ultrasonic distance sensors and how we can measure. And then you can like kind of click through and get stuff, and it gives you code to put. Explains how it works, gives you some code to put over here into the code editor. You save it, you can run it, and then it'll actually like work on the sensor inside. Whether it's a sensor, or there's one here that he really enjoyed playing with before that lets you make a little calculator. So you use these buttons here like a calculator, and then it ends up actually showing the calculation on this screen. So it's these are the motor connectors. You can use them for different things. So it has just a lot of possibilities. See, I'm going back a screen, it gives you the choice of Python or Scratch for learning these things. And then it also comes with this is the home screen. So you can see there's the Minecraft stuff where you can learn about how to program with Minecraft, because there's programming for Minecraft. There's this section, the AI section. There's a camera on the front, so you can actually, when you click through to here, you can program it for facial recognition or program it as a microphone for speech recognition. And it's the same kind of lesson that you go through. It loads Python. This one I think has to be Python, and it explains to you how to, all the steps for doing it. These are like serious, like teaches you about real adult stuff. Like OpenCV is what adults use. It's not, it's not just, kiddie stuff that they're just going to outgrow really fast. It's useful stuff, right? So, there's this projects here. Here's another bunch of tutorial to go through. So it's expensive. $269 gets you the basic kit without a Raspberry Pi 4. $399 gets you what I have. It's definitely not a replacement for a real laptop for your child. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you go to you have the Raspberry Pi desktop on here, so you can surf the web and you can program and you can use Office apps and all that stuff. But the it doesn't have a battery. I don't think as powerful as Raspberry Pi 4 is, I don't think a lot of people would use it in lieu of a PC or Chromebook or a Mac in terms of web surfing performance. But it's really good for learning about programming and learning about electronics, because there's just so many lessons in there that you can use. So I think it's pretty cool. Personally, I don't really like the feel of this keyboard, but if you're 8 years old like my son, it also comes with a wireless mouse, at least. But you can also, it has USB ports, so you can plug in a separate mouse, use it. What I really like about this is that it you with all essential pieces that your needs, or even in programming and electronics, you don't need to a bunch of separate pieces and try and sort of stitch together. You can go through the tutorials and everything you need is right there.
And that's super cool. Looking at some of the things, I'm on the website right now, and I'm looking at some of the capabilities of the. Well, I guess it's more of a platform than just a device, right? Because it's got UI and everything. But it's got AI voice recognition, AI facial recognition, which we saw as one of the projects when you were when you were showing off some of the capabilities there. I mean, that's, like you said, that's some pretty advanced stuff. That's not small scale things.
Yeah, no joke. Also, it, I mean, like anyway, it can connect to other boards, Arduino. Oh, and it also came with a bunch of like little, this will be the death of me. I might have to kind of throw it out when my son's not looking because it's going to make a mess. It also comes with cardboard, all these cardboard cutouts of Minecraft places that you can like put together. So it's like, it's fun, and it comes. It also comes with another micro SD card that has RetroPie emulator on it, and with these controllers, so you can play retro games on it. Um, Although that's the basic kit that's $269 doesn't come with that, but you don't really, to be honest, you don't really need that. You could easily just make your own micro SD card with, and get your own controllers. But the screen is decent. It's has a lot of backlight bleed, but I guess what do you expect? I mean, I just don't think of it as a laptop. Like if you're thinking of it as I'm going to buy my child a laptop, then this is not for you. This is not what it's for. I wouldn't recommend this for someone to get it for their kid to use for school. I wouldn't recommend them to get it to use for anything but this. It is a really, really good electronics learning tool and programming learning tool. That's what it's for. Now, obviously, spending that amount of money, you better make sure that your kid's going to use it, going to actually go through those lessons and use it, because otherwise you'll be really annoyed. But there's a lot of there. There's I've gone through a lot of robot kits, a lot of electronics kits in my time as a parent and as an editor reviewing things, and most of them give you stuff that's very proprietary. Like, oh yeah, you can learn how to program, but it's our special programming language that only works on our robots or our learning kit. No, this teaches you how to program in Python. Python is a serious adult programming language that's used for electronics, for all kinds of things. So if your child learns this, and even if they are not comfortable with that right away and they start with Scratch, which is the block-based language, that is a standard. Scratch is made by MIT. It is a language. So what I really like is when you give a child a learning kit that uses standards, that teaches them how to use something. They can then go to another computer, not take that skill, not concepts like, oh, I learned the concept of programming, right? That learn what they actually exactly learned and take that to another device.
It can carry forward
another situation and carry it forward. Yeah. And this will do that for you.
Yeah, that was actually one of our complaints when we first started mentoring with First. First Tech Challenge was using this bizarro world language called Robot C, which is used by nobody, and so they eventually transitioned out of that and started doing all of their stuff in Java, which again gives you the ability to carry skills forward, because even if you learn Java and you never use Java and other C languages are similar enough. I've taken 0 Java classes, and all my C# stuff made me basically an expert in Java. So yeah, that always annoyed me with First, was that Robot C. Well, what are we learning? Concepts? Who cares? I want something that I can carry forward on a more real world basis. So I'm glad that this is the case here too.
Yeah, so for that reason, and we have a review of this up on tomshardware.com. We've had a review up of it for a while. I just got my unit this weekend, but we've actually had a review of this up since August. So I definitely encourage folks to check out our full review at tomshardware.com of the CrowPi 2. But also, really, this would make a nice holiday present for a child. Afford to spend at least the $269 to get it. You can go to Elecrow, ELECROW.com, and they say that orders will be shipped in November. So presumably well in time for the holiday. It's definitely a great learning gift. It says ages 8 and up. My son is 8, and he's on the Python. Depending on how advanced your child is, really a great for you to work to do as a parent to play with. learn some things.
Yeah, for sure. And don't be intimidated, even if you don't have a strong background in programming, or really any background in programming. If you can start with Scratch, if you're able to do Legos and think your way through how to get from the room you're in out your front door, if you can put those two skills together, you've basically built Scratch. You can basically use Scratch, which is a pretty good place for everybody to begin, because I've always liked the concept. Scratch is the first implementation that has been effective, I think, and it's a good thing. So I'm glad that they've got both of them on there.
Yep.
Very cool. Well, Avram, as always, I appreciate you showing it off. It's definitely a cool thing, and perfect timing, just in time for the holidays. And as always, I look forward to what we talk about next. This week's Extra Life on F5 Live is probably powered by Razer. Get all the accessories you need to up your game on your PC, console, or mobile device from Razer. Whether you're looking for a gaming mouse and keyboard like we use here in the studio, a webcam and light for your Twitch stream because the webcam's back in stock, or an entire gaming setup like the Razer Blade 15. You can find it all at Razer by going to f5live.tv/Razer. Somebody in our Florida gamer group let us know that I think it was that group, that the webcams were back in stock.
Maybe.
Well, yeah.
Not fast, depending on when you watch this.
Exactly. You never know minute to minute, but the fact that it was even a possibility is pretty exciting. Anyway, speaking of game streaming and webcams and Twitch and all of that, the world of game streaming has been very unique, kind of since it started. It's been a little bit of the Wild West. We talked about some of the negative connotations of the Wild West environment a couple of months ago, where some streamers, particularly women and or people of color, have had trouble with commentary and, inappropriate messages and all kinds of things like that.
There was a segment on GMA about it this week, by the way.
Yes.
Where our writer Natasha was one of the people that they interviewed on GMA. So, anyway, watch that anyone if you have time.
For sure. Now, the other side of things has been the kind of lack of legal oversight. The concept of streaming a video game is nebulous in the legal realms. In the last year or two, we've seen studios and publishers start putting out free licenses for streamers, basically giving them legal rights to stream the content. But technically, the music, the voice, the graphics, the story are all copyrighted, no different than a TV or a movie, and it's against the law to stream those. And so technically, there's been some gray area on what is and is not okay for game streaming. And this week, the creative director for Typhoon Studios, which is a Google Stadia studio, which is a weird series of words to say in order, Alex Hutchinson, tweeted that he believed that game streamers should be paying royalties and obtaining a license to stream their gameplay on services like Twitch or Facebook Gaming. Obviously, the Twitterverse responded harshly, as Twitter is known to do, and so he defended his position. He said, "It's amazing to me that people are upset at someone saying that the creators of content should be allowed to make some of the money from other people using their content for profit. Again, the argument from a legal perspective does hold some water, though there's been kind of this unwritten agreement between gamers and streamers where both parties recognized that it is in everybody's best interest. For example, Among Us is a game that today probably everybody has heard the name, but only in the last couple of months, despite the fact that the game has been out for 2 years. Why? Because some high-profile people started playing it on Twitch, and now everybody knows the game, and lots of people have played it. So it was good for the Among Us devs and publisher. It's good for the streamers. Obviously, that's not necessarily always the case. Something with hidden storyline and things like that, if somebody watches it, they're going to be far less likely to purchase the game. But that relationship has always kind of been unwritten. And it sounds like he wants it to be written the other direction. It's an interesting position for sure.
Yeah. So think about not just streaming, but all the places in which content from a game is used. I mean, what about all the people who do video walkthroughs of games?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's pretty much the same thing as streaming.
Let's play content. That kind of stuff, yeah.
So it's an entire industry. Now,
and a big one.
The question is, I mean, the streamers presumably paid for obtain the game to play themselves. So what Mr. Hutchinson is talking about is, well, they should also have to pay for the fact that they're broadcasting it. But the difference between
public performance license.
Yes. Like I can buy a Blu-ray, but I can't open a movie theater and show the Blu-ray to people, or I can't even necessarily play it in my pub, whatever.
Right.
Nor can I stream a video of me watching it with the camera pointed at the TV or whatever. Like,
right.
There's limits. The difference between a song, TV show or movie, or a book, and a video game is that the video game is interactive. So, am I taking away, like, all these other things? You're kind of taking away the revenue stream from the original content creator if you stream. Because if I could take a movie and stream it and then someone can watch it, well, then maybe they won't actually pay to buy or rent it on their own. Like, they already got it from me. If I take music and I do that, well, then what's their incentive to pay for it? But with a game,
or let's say Redbox, who was trying to buy DVDs retail instead of buying them under the rental agreement.
Right. So the difference, though, is that watching play and playing oneself are different things.
Absolutely. And for a lot of people, watching somebody play encourages them to as well.
Yeah. Also, just to go back to walkthroughs, I cannot tell you how many times my son and I have been playing a game and we've gotten stuck and we went and we watched someone's walkthrough. If that service didn't exist, then maybe we would buy fewer games because we would be annoyed that we might get stuck.
Absolutely.
So doing and you are not getting the experience of playing the game by watching somebody else play. Now, one could argue that maybe watching the game is enough. Maybe when I see you play through the whole game and I know how it's going to end, I'm not as excited to play it myself. Maybe so. Um, but maybe that's why nobody has yet complained, because this would become a serious problem.
Well, the idea of watching somebody play, particularly the professionals, right? But even amateurs, and that leading to sales of the game and driving people to want to play versus just watch is so ingrained in the gaming industry that Apex Legends reportedly paid Ninja $1 million to play their game on launch week and stream it. That's a huge amount of money, and they definitely planned not that people watching him play would be enough. It was definitely intended. They truly believed, and I think it worked, that people watching Ninja play the game would drive other people to play it. And I think it worked. So is it possible that some, like you said, some types of games, this might pose an issue? Yeah, sure. Some super story driven type games with hidden plot points and things like that. Maybe. But the gameplay would have to be really dull for that to dissuade somebody. But when you're talking about something like Apex Legends or Fortnite, honest to God, without Twitch, nobody would know about Fortnite today. You know what I mean? That game is a household name because of Twitch, not because of Fortnite. And I think we all know that.
Right.
So there are certainly whole gaming genres that only exist today because of game streaming. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, The idea that gaming, online gaming, has changed some from just things like Call of Duty to also have, Overwatch and Apex Legends and Fortnite and PUBG and all these other types of games that are very designed to be exciting to watch and to play isn't necessarily a bad thing, because people enjoy both sides of it. They've built a whole new industry out of it. I think it's a cool thing, but I can see if you're deep down inside of the creative team more than like the marketing and wanting people to actually play it team. I can see how you might get there, but I think streaming is generally a benefit to the game studios and publishers. Personally,
the problem is the minute that, let's say that becomes a thing. Let's say that Hutchinson is the Lars Ulrich of game streaming, right? Lars Ulrich being the Metallica drummer who famously made a big stink about music, peer-to-peer music sharing, right?
Oh, sorry. You almost made me spit out my drink. I wasn't prepared for that analysis. Yes, absolutely. Let's say that he is, and
let's say that he is, and this all comes to pass, right? It's going to make streamers think twice about. I think what would have to happen then is some game publishers would probably come out and say, like, ours is free to stream or something like that.
Some of them already are. Some studios and some publishers have already been putting out into the world general use free streaming licenses, just in case somebody wants to come around and get testy about it. So there have been some studios that have gone and said, nope, whoop, enjoy.
Right. So I think, maybe there will be others that try to charge people. It would become kind of a mess, but what it would ultimately do is it would probably be something that would be a boon for the companies that did allow.
Mm-hmm.
If game publishers if any of them, not just many, but even decide that they are now going to require licensing to do your streaming, that's going to create a burden on Twitch and its competitors, because then they are going to be responsible to make sure that you have a license if you're streaming that title. And right now, they are content agnostic.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, truly content agnostic, which interestingly leads us to the other half of this topic. They have been so content agnostic, save for manual intervention, which has involved things like, manually interacting with and taking down adult content and things like that. They have completely ignored copyright law. They have ignored all kinds of things. And that seems to have possibly caught up with them this week. Because in addition to this tweet that went out from a Google studio, an email also went out from Twitch to some high-profile streamers, letting them know that content had been removed under DMCA, had been deleted. The word deleted was used, which is important. So Twitch does not have an appeals process, because they've literally never done this before. They used the word deleted, and many of the content creators were also threatened that there was other content on their channel that infringed and would be deleted if it wasn't dealt with. So it seems like we're getting to that level in game streaming where people are starting to pay attention. Podcasting hit this a couple of years ago. We started to see RIA get involved and issue DMCA takedown notices against podcasts for using music without a license. And I have a feeling that that's what's happened here. I don't think that it's the game studios in this particular case. I think what's happened here is a lot of streamers have used music and graphics and stuff that they didn't have rights to. And I think the rights holders are starting to come after them. Maybe RIA has started indexing Twitch or something like that and issued takedown notices. And that obviously is their right. That's how the DMCA is set up. However, the fact that Twitch doesn't have an appeals process, we've talked about this before, is a mess, because we know all of the invalid DMCA requests that happen on YouTube. We talked about that, 2 or 3 weeks ago, over the truck. Oh, the Nikola truck, right? We talked about the invalid DMCA takedown notices on that, and if there wasn't an appeals process, all those content creators would lose their stuff. That's literally what's happened here on Twitch, and I think that's going to cause Twitch a lot of trouble. Maybe Microsoft got out of the game a little too early, because if Twitch doesn't put an appeals process in and is just deleting content creators are not going to trust the platform with their stuff, because I can go in and put in an invalid DMCA. I mean, it's a felony, but we'll ignore that. I go in and put in an invalid DMCA against a streamer and their stuff goes away. Ooh, that's terrible.
Yeah, that would be a really serious problem.
And that's literally what we're seeing here, is content just disappearing with no way to appeal it, no way to claim any kind of fair use, no way even to download it and save it for yourself. It's just gone. So this is obviously a mess for Twitch and Amazon, who is the parent of Twitch. Hopefully we'll see an appeals process come about quick, because they're gonna lose reputation if they don't deal with this and deal with it quickly. So it does seem like the industry is changing. It seems like the world is taking note of it, which obviously, when an emerging technology starts to get noticed, that's when rules that already applied start to be enforced, and that confuses everybody. So we'll see how this is handled going forward, because obviously this is important for a lot of people. I mean, we're literally streaming on Twitch right now if you're watching us live. So, you know, this affects a lot of people. So we will keep an eye on this going forward. This week's news from the tubes and F5 Live is proudly powered by RiffTrax. Make fun of movies and let these guys do it for you. Mike Nelson, Bill Corbett, and Kevin Murphy, the former stars of Mystery Science Theater 3000, are back and doing what they do best, creating commentaries for Hollywood blockbusters and B-movie oddities. It's like watching a movie with your funniest friends. And to find out about all of the full-length features, the short films, the TV episodes, and live events that are coming up, you can find all of that at f5live.tv/rifftracks with an X. So we talked about this in, I think, May, that the inevitable antitrust case against Google was likely coming in the next couple of months, and this week that inevitability came to pass. The U.S. Justice Department has filed an antitrust suit against Google after years of investigations. This current one happened in, I think, 3 phases, starting in 2013. So it has been 7 years to get here. The claim is very similar to the antitrust claim that was brought against them in the European Union in 2018, for which Google ended up being fined $5 billion. Essentially, the claim from the Justice Department is that Google has used its search position. They represent 80% of the search market in the United States. They've used their search position to boost up their other products, and then in turn use their other products to boost up their search, creating essentially a firewall to the internet. The Justice Department actually described Google as the gateway to the internet, and for many people it is, whether you're talking about finding stuff on Google search or using Chrome as your browser or Android as your operating system. That particular claim makes sense. Although, you know, whether or not they've used their position to actively or intentionally harm others has been up in the air. Obviously, that's why it's taken 7 years to get to where we are. Companies like Yelp have made claims for years that Google has essentially stolen their data and then minimized the relevance of Yelp, and Yelp sued and things changed. But this is the biggest antitrust case in the U.S. since the Microsoft case in the 1990s. The Microsoft case was filed in 98, and the verdict was handed down in 2000. So do not expect this to be a short process. And most of what happened in the Microsoft case ended up basically not coming to pass anyway. Although the end result was kind of opening a door for Google to come up out of nowhere and become a big player, which is a good thing. More competition. Avram and I say it all the time, right? More competition in a space tends to lead to more innovation, which certainly, you know, it put Microsoft and Apple on their toes for a long time. So yeah, that was good, but there's no telling how this thing's going to go.
Yeah, hard to say. I mean, looking at the Justice Department's press release on this, the points that they mention are entering into exclusivity agreements that forbid pre-installation of any competing search service.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's like with Android phone vendors,
Yeah.
and
Especially Android phone vendors, because you can't have the Play Store access unless you follow a lot of Google branded rules.
entering into tying and other arrangements that force pre-installation of its search applications in prime locations on mobile devices and make them undeletable. Okay, that's kind of the same thing. Having the Google search app.
I think that's talking about having the search widget pre-installed on the home screen. That I read some more on that, and it feels like what they're getting at there is the Google search widget on the home screen.
Into agreements with Apple that require Google to be the default in Safari and other Apple search tools, generally using monopoly profits to buy preferential treatment for its search engine on devices, browsers, and other search access points, continuous and self-reinforcing cycle of monopolization.
So I don't have a problem with them paying for the rights to have Google search be a default anywhere. Everybody has done it. Microsoft has done it. Yahoo has done it. Whatever.
Yeah, I mean, here's an interesting little story from my life this week. We got my mother a new laptop recently, and it came with a year of free McAfee McAfee antivirus. So we installed the McAfee antivirus, and she came over with her laptop this week, and she was complaining. Every time she opens up the browser, it wants to search Yahoo. And I said, and she's opening up Chrome and Yahoo. I finally figured out why it was searching Yahoo. Correct. It was searching Yahoo because when we installed McAfee antivirus on my mother's computer, McAfee made it search Yahoo. It calls it secure search, but it's really just probably Yahoo paying McAfee some money somewhere.
Yeah.
So I had to go in and do the opposite and change it back to Google because my mother wanted Google. It has most Google because, for better or worse, Google is the standard for search. Now, maybe that's a shame because there really isn't a lot of competition.
And there might be at least some of the justification behind the Justice Department's inquiry here. We'll see.
The problem is no other search engine has shown to give me better results. Like,
interesting, because personally, I hate Google's search results, and I exclusively use Bing's search results because I find that the results are better.
Yeah.
And
so
I tested about quarterly. Now, granted, most of my searches are on highly technical things, and a lot of it is within the Microsoft ecosystem. So, you know, I'm an odd case.
Also interesting is, in a sense, I'm also bound to using Google because as someone who runs a website, like, we really only care about our ranking on Google because so little traffic comes from Bing, and any other search engine is below the floor. Like, nobody even thinks about.
Which is the Justice Department's Google is the gateway to the internet.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, the influence of, the things that they're talking about seem, in comparison to the things that Google really is accomplishing with its monopoly position, that could be frightening. Like, for example, Google has an outsized influence on the content of the web. Now, I don't know if you can call that using your monopoly position or not, but let's talk about Google AMP for a second. For those who don't know, Google AMP is the format when you're on a mobile device click on a result from Google and it loads super fast, and maybe you'll see /amp in the URL.
Mm-hmm.
That's a format which excludes certain types of page elements, certain types of graphics, certain types of JavaScript, whatever, because Google gives preferential treatment to websites that use Google's AMP format.
That offer AMP, yeah.
And that is at the expense of those sites, because not only do they have to make the stuff, an AMP version of their pages, but those AMP versions of the pages have fewer ads on them.
Mm-hmm.
So they're losing money. So there's a lot of ways
and they tend to be Google ads because they're far easier to integrate.
Yeah. So, and Google also, times is kind of the content police with people's websites, right? And so, we don't like, we've heard nobody knows for sure what Google's search engine wants at any given time, because that's kind of a trade secret and is always changing. And we're all trying to guess at any given time how we get closer to number one on any given search term.
In 2019, I think the number we saw was that there were 450 adjustments to the search algorithm. And yes, that's more than one a day. So yeah, what does it want right now? I don't know. It might be different than it was this morning.
Yeah. So bottom line, obviously Google a lot of these things under the, and they say that they're doing it to help the user experience. And in a lot of cases, it is a benefit. It is a tangible benefit to the user. I'm sure they don't like going on web pages that have a million, ads on them. They like web pages that load fast.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we don't even need to do a big survey to figure that one out. But the thing is, in a way, you're kind of enforcing, being kind of the content police. Granted, Google's argument would be, hey, it's not our problem. If you don't want we're not forcing you. You don't have to be in our search engine.
And there's the antitrust case.
But you do have to be in their search engine if you want people to see you.
Right.
If you're not on Google, you're nowhere. And that's, so Google does have an incredible influence, and in a way it is frightening. But the things that the Justice Department named here are really the tip of the iceberg, because they're just talking about getting Google pre-installed on devices primarily. And that's frankly, if Google wasn't pre-installed on those devices, a lot of people would probably go in and change their search engine to Google anyway. Because they're so conditioned to use Google. So I'm not really sure if that's going to do anything about Google's do anything with Google's monopoly position.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this spiders, because in the Microsoft case, from the initial filing, I think there were 3 more that followed, and all of that was wrapped into a single court appearance. It all came together under one thing. The first filing was pretty high level, and then I think it was the second filing that included Internet Explorer being an integral part of Windows 98 and things like that, because Windows 98 hadn't really hit when the first one was filed. So the subsequent ones added additional challenges. And I have a feeling we'll see the same thing here. We'll likely see additional challenges added to this over time. Clearly, this is just the beginning of us talking about it, because there's no way that this is a short process. This is going to be a couple of years, almost certainly. And one of the things that the Microsoft case showed us in the 90s was how little the legal system understood technology. And like Avram kind of just said, I don't know if it was exactly the point, but a little bit, this filing here might have shown that it hasn't gotten much better in the last 22 years.
Yeah.
Because they definitely seem to have missed the point.
there's a lot of other areas of attack here, but maybe they won't come from the government. I bet someone has sued them, but I'm not aware of anybody suing Google for things like the answer box, right? Like areas where Google takes content from other sources.
Yeah. Yeah. Yelp's suit wasn't entirely about the answer box. It was kind of the predecessor to it. It was the thing that came up on the right-hand side that wasn't quite the answer box, but was like we're learning what we're doing, and it became the answer box. And Yelp sued them over it, and they were basically delisted from Google's sidebar. So there have been very specific cases, but there hasn't been anything generic, like overarching, which is what an antitrust case would be an overarching case. So maybe we'll see, perhaps Yelp has been in contact with the Justice Department, or maybe they will be now that a filing has happened, to talk about how it affected them. There's no telling, but obviously we will be talking about this for a while.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if image libraries were an area where a lawsuit could happen, because there's like Google image search and Google News where they show you a thumbnail and all the areas where they're taking images and showing it in their search. I could totally see like the publishers, like, our website, like we don't want to get on Google's bad side. Like they want to show an image for our thing. They want to use us in the answer box. Please, we want to be on Google. We want to be behind Google. But I could see a photographer or an image library like Getty or somebody deciding, hey, look, when I do an image search, my image comes up. You're showing my image, but you didn't license Google. You didn't license my image. The Wall Street Journal did, or this other website did. So, without that, we've appealed a billion image searches, now pay us.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting situation, and it might explain why sometimes in Google News you see like the publisher's logo in the thing, and sometimes you see it on Facebook too, because you do have control as the website. With Facebook it's the open graph, with Google it's the other one. I can't remember what it's called now, but you can control what image Google indexes or Facebook indexes for your thing. So perhaps those arguments are made. Maybe Google could get away with it by saying, well, we just did what the publisher told us to do. Talk to them. But it might be why we're starting to see like the New York Times logo show up more frequently on Facebook when an image is shared, or when an article is shared, rather than the proper article image. Anyway, there's, like you said, there's a lot of surfaces here, and I don't think that they have found any of them yet. Because, okay, so pre-installing Google search on your phone, that's fine. I've got the Surface Duo in the office. It had all of the Google stuff installed and all of the Microsoft stuff installed, and who cares? So I don't think like you said, I don't think they found, I think they've missed the plot here, but maybe further filings are coming. We will definitely see. We'll be keeping an eye on it. Yeah.
Raspberry Pi OS comes with DuckDuckGo preloaded.
I have the DuckDuckGo browser installed on my.
No, it's Chromium browser, but DuckDuckGo is your search engine.
Oh, okay. I've been experimenting with the DuckDuckGo browser, and it's fascinating. Anyway, like I said, we'll be keeping an eye on this probably over the next couple of years. So we're not going anywhere on it. This week's DRM Not Included in F5 Live is proudly powered by Amazon Prime. In addition to your free shipping, you get a lot of other benefits, such as free music with Amazon Prime Music, free TV, movies, and documentaries with Amazon Prime Video, including the new Borat film, free games, and a free subscription on Twitch with Amazon Prime Gaming, and a whole lot more. We have quick links to all of these features, as well as a free 30-day trial in the event you do not already have it, and the ability to give it as a gift in case you want to give a Prime subscription to a friend or family for the holidays. And all of that is in one place by going to f5live.tv/prime. All right. If there's one topic that Avram and I have talked about over the last couple of years, it has been the inevitability of subscription fatigue and the unbelievable onslaught of new video streaming services. Well, this week the topic is a little different because one of those streaming services has officially announced that December 1st, bye-bye. That service is Quibi, which I think we all saw coming because none of us, nobody I know in the industry, outside the industry, nobody could quite wrap their head around the value proposition on it. In a normal year, the idea of 10-minute short bites, kind of makes sense if you're standing in line waiting for a thing or running on a treadmill, which they literally showed in the commercials, being at the gym and watching the Chrissy Teigen lawyer show on the treadmill. Weird commercial. But none of that has existed this year. So it has made the value proposition even more difficult. The company recognized this before they launched, that they were going to have some issues. They signed an agreement with T-Mobile. We talked about that last year, where it was part of the T-Mobile Tuesdays, where T-Mobile subscribers got 6 months for free. Hey, guess what? That's just expired. So I think they saw all of those T-Mobile customers disappear. They signed big name content. They focused on big name content. Like I mentioned, the Chrissy Teigen lawyer thing, or judge thing. I have no idea what that was about. Reno 911. We talked about that, which was honest to God the only thing on the service that I had cared about. And I used my 7-day free trial to watch all the episodes and then moved on. So they recognized ahead of time that they were going to have an uphill battle. I think the lockdowns made that hill almost 90 degrees. I don't think in 2020 there was a way for them to succeed with it, unless they had adopted the Peacock model, which they tried. We talked about it. They tried it in Australia and New Zealand, but they didn't roll it out worldwide. I think they should have. They might have actually seen some success because Comcast seems to be real happy with how Peacock is going.
Yes. So my question is, you had the Fugitive show. Will you be able to find out whether they find the one-armed man?
So it's a fascinating question. The question of the future of the content is the only thing we don't quite know right now. Because in grand Quibi fashion, they took a different approach to the content. They spent their money to produce the content, but did not own the rights to it. They would sign 2-year exclusivity deals on the properties, but did not own the rights to the thing. So they don't have the right to sell the rights because they do not own them. And we don't know if the company closing is going to invalidate these 2-year exclusivity deals. But if everything goes right and the exclusivity deals are terminated at the closing of the company on December 1st, the content creators will have the ability and the right to reshop the content. So that will be up to the to the content creators themselves what happens. So we have no idea what the future of any of this content looks like. Some of them probably have rollback agreements. I cannot imagine that that Comedy Central allowed the Reno 911 thing to not have some sort of a rollback agreement in the event the company goes away. But there's no telling what's going to happen here. And even Jeffrey Katzenberg, who is the founder, and Meg Whitman, who's the CEO, even they're like, we don't know.
Yeah, I mean, look, everybody thinks that they can get into the streaming business, and everybody is getting the streaming business. So they probably thought, okay, we don't have any great franchises. We don't have any great IP. What are we going to do? Oh, we'll make it short. That'll be our gimmick. Now, I'm always skeptical of any type of media where the idea is to just make it short. Mm-hmm. To use the brevity of the medium, the brevity is the message or whatever. But on the other hand, Twitter succeeded with that, mm-hmm. where I didn't think they would. So,
in fairness, YouTube has succeeded with it. YouTube is kind of the king of short form video. You know what I mean?
But they're not charging people for it.
Like, exactly. And I think that was part of Quibi's problem.
Is that YouTube is social media, right? In a lot of ways.
Because it's user generated.
It's user generated. If you're paying for YouTube subscription, then you're paying for ad free or whatever. Mm-hmm. But
which is a very similar model to Peacock.
Right. So that's where YouTube. That's where and YouTube is not bite-sized by its nature. It's just a lot of things are shorter because people think that that's all someone can bear.
Right. Obviously, we're
a phone review. I'm not going to spend an hour on it.
Obviously, we're an exception to the rule.
Being on
YouTube, but both of our companies do a lot of short form stuff. I know. I see Cherie posts. Yeah, I see her do short videos.
Sure, but it's
focused.
Not,
but it's not short by force. It's short by nature. The content is what it is.
Also, it's nonfiction, right? Like,
right.
I think the thing is, I've never seen a movie or show where I was like, oh man, that was, well, I mean, occasionally that was really long, but it's rare that I would see like a 1 hour show or something and be like, that episode was too long. I really should have seen it in 5 minutes.
Unless it's terrible.
Yes.
If it's bad, then you're like, oh God, I cannot believe I just put an hour into that.
Right. But I've never seen a movie where I was like, this is one of the things I'll never get. People complain about, like, a new Avengers movie comes out or something like, oh, it's terrible. It's 3 hours long. Well, you're paying the same $15. I mean, if we ever go to movie theaters again,
right?
You're paying the same $15 to see it, whether it's 3 hours long or an hour and 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. You might as well get your money's worth. So, if it's really good, then it won't seem like 3 hours.
Right.
So Quibi was sort of based on this concept that, like, oh, you just can't bear to watch more than 5 minutes, and, like, first of all, if you have something like The Fugitive here, where they had a whole bunch of different episodes, like, okay, so you just watch them one after the other anyway. I mean,
I watched.
What's the point?
I watched all of the Reno 911 episodes in one sit-down shot.
Right.
So I was done. I was done in an hour and a half or whatever it was, and that was it. I was done with Quibi. It's like, all right, subscription complete.
Yeah, I don't see short video as a selling point. In
Yeah.
the early days of web, do you remember way back in the early days of like YouTube and earlier, there were all kinds of like little web series where
Mm-hmm.
everything was 5 minutes long
Mm-hmm.
or less.
Mm-hmm.
And it just made everything seem so throwaway. And then you start to have companies like Netflix come and make like real television
Yeah.
on the internet. It was like, oh wow, now I can take this seriously. Versus when they'd have things like, what was it, like BMW or somebody had a whole series of 5 minute movies that they had put up
Yeah.
by famous directors.
Yes. Yes,
Forget
I
it, it
remember
was some
that.
car company. I don't know if it was
Yes.
BMW.
I don't remember who it was either, but yeah, I had forgotten about that. But yes, I definitely remember it. But, you know, the thing that got me when Quibi made this announcement, they made it like a big deal. Like, we're doing short form, and it's going to be, everything's under 10 minutes. And I remember thinking, well, so was Super Deluxe, and where are they today? Right? Nothing that has ever tried to enforce a time rule on video except for Snapchat has been able to accomplish it. Or TikTok. That's what I meant. And they don't really so much have an enforcement so much as a community standard, but you know, we haven't seen it really succeed. Yeah, there was Vine, which was 6 seconds, and that was just the Twitter of video. But, you know, trying to actually produce content within a time, a hard set time frame like that is such a silly concept that 30 Rock literally made fun of it a decade ago on television.
Yep. So what I was talking about, it was BMW.
Okay.
It was called The Hire. And they had famous directors for every episode. I think they were all about Clive Owen playing the driver who goes from one place to another in BMW, hired to provide driving or other services.
Yes.
Sort of like, I guess, what was that movie with Jason Statham? Like a poor man's some movies with Jason Statham, the driver. What was he called? Where he drives around and
Yep.
brings cargo. He doesn't look in the trunk.
Yep.
It's like a cheapo ad supported version of that.
Transporter.
Yeah, like, that's what web video was. Yeah, it was like it was like a poor man's transporter or whatever for 5 minutes at a time.
The dollar store version.
Yeah, the dollar store version of transporter, but done to promote BMW cars, and that's what. And just for folks who weren't, online at the time, or or young, so young they didn't notice. Like that was what web video was like 20 years ago. It was like really short videos. It wasn't expected that people were going to be have an attention span for long stuff,
because it was going to take forever to download.
Studios. Yes, people didn't have broadband. There wasn't as many. There weren't a lot of people watching that stuff on television. So on a television, so the thought was you'd be sitting in front of your computer,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe people aren't going to sit in front of their computer long enough to watch a movie. Now, of course, people have set-top boxes. Yeah. They've got tablets. They've got phones. And they've got broadband.
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't know. That's when I think of Quibi, I think of stuff like that.
Yeah, like my mind immediately went to Super Deluxe because it was a fascinating story to watch because it was Turner's second attempt at the exact same concept, and it failed just as miserably the second time as the first. But I also, on the other side of it, I also think of an interview I saw. This is going to age it, so be prepared. On the screensavers, with I think it was Kevin Pereira and Leo Laporte talking to Tim and Eric when they had just had their show Tom Goes to the Mayor picked up by Adult Swim, and one of them asked, "How are you going to be able to deal with the 11-minute time frame instead of a standard 22 or 44 minute episode. And I think it was Tim said, we've really talked about that a lot. We don't know how we're going to do 11 minutes. That's a lot of time. We're used to doing 2.5. Which obviously wasn't what they were asking. It was the opposite. But they had been doing what we were just talking about. They were doing old style. I mean, it was the screensavers, so that ages it out pretty good. They were doing old style web content, and they were averaging about 2.5 to 3 minutes per episode. And now they were having to fill 11. They're like, I don't know how we're going to do that. So, yeah. Anything that tries to force inside of a time, like appointment television, is getting harder to do. So I don't think it was a selling point. Like you said, I don't think 10 minutes was a selling point. I think they really thought that they were going to get Gen Y and Gen Z in there, like, quick hit waiting at Starbucks. And honest to God, in all the pitches, that was how it felt. And I think it was a silly pitch, but doesn't matter. It's over. We're not even going to talk about the lawsuit because that's its own barrel of worms. But the company has simply had trouble. $1.75 billion in investment, and I think they have $380 million left of it that they're going to return to investors, and then who knows? That look on your face, Avram, when I saw those numbers, that was my feeling too. It's so they're gonna. They said they're gonna producing the content.
What did they spend it on?
Producing the content, hiring, spending money on people like Chrissy Teigen. There were a lot of salary numbers in there. They really thought that if they had big name people, it would attract people to the platform. They were obviously wrong. Not being able to watch it on your TV was also a huge disaster point for them. They definitely missed the mark on almost everything. And honestly, I don't think most people are even going to know that the service existed, and those that did are probably not going to miss it. So, Quibi, goodbye. And that is our show. Thank you to those of you who joined us live for all of the interesting technical fun that we had tonight. If you didn't join us live and would like to experience, hopefully not the chaos that we had tonight, on another night, Sunday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, you can go to f5live.tv/join us and chat with us in the studio, give us feedback as we talk, and watch us panic when things do go wrong. If you aren't able to join us live, that's okay. You can always go to PLUGHITZlive.com/subscribe. You can see all of our shows and all the ways that you can watch, listen, and follow along. Honestly, for those who stuck it out for the entire live show, congratulations. We appreciate it because tonight has been bonkers. But you know what? It is what it is. Live does what live does. But yes, with that, on behalf of the staff that's not here, I'm Scott.
I'm Avram.
And we will see you guys back next time. Ciao.